Guys, we're talking season 2, episode 11 of The Magicians. And you know what? We got all the bases covered. We've got dragons, we've got rats, we've got bowling, pretty much everything you could want. So stick around.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
This is... Gotta love YouTube, man.
You couldn't find, like, we couldn't possibly find a better song to open with.
Not at all.
And it was really, we did the YouTube equivalent of hitting like I'm Feeling Lucky on Google.
Exactly.
That's basically, thank you to our producer, our magical producer for finding this wonderful piece of music for season 2, episode 11. We're talking the Rattening here on the Magicians After Show right here on AfterBuzz TV. My name's Ty Matthews. Y'all can find me online at Ty Matthews PMA. We've got a minimalist crew today. I'm joined by the lovely and talented, as always, Ms. Adrienne Snow.
Hi, guys. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrienne Snow. And that's MSEDRIENSNOW.
Absolutely. There's always so much to talk about,
There
and
is.
I feel like we're gonna we might go short today. Who knows? Who knows?
Probably.
But you know what?
I mean, I could fawn over Christopher Gorham for like 10 minutes.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We do.
And you know what? Let's actually start with him. Let's start.
Yeah.
Let's
You
start
wanna with John and Richard.
Let's start with
John and
Renard. But we will see Richard.
I know.
Elsewhere. Keeping up that ongoing theme of kind of people and their doppelgangers and the different versions of our favorite characters. But one of the things that jumped out at me about this subplot with Senator Gaines and with Renard is just like that kind of heartbreak. That there's one shot, there's one moment of just pure pain on Senator Gaines' face.
Sorry. I thought I was totally about to do a Hamilton reference. I was like, is he not going to miss a shot?
I get to take a shot? There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
That's going to be stuck in my head for 3 weeks.
Sorry about that.
No, there is one shot of Senator Gaines' face where it's the moment that he realizes
his wife.
It's exactly that moment where she just kind of instantly goes along with whatever he says, and he realizes like
so messed up.
Everything's a lie.
Has he ever had consensual sex in his life?
Oh,
I'm sorry, guys, but that's something that I thought about. Okay,
but I mean, it's
I was
true.
like, has he ever done anything with anyone consensually?
Oh God,
anything? A kiss, a hug.
What an awful ramification of that I hadn't even considered. Oh boy.
Yeah, I think. You know, Christopher Gorham could read the dictionary and I'd be there for it. But there's something really disconcerting about, well, I guess I have to talk about the casting because between Christopher Gorham and Richard, whose name I cannot remember, which
Mackenzie Aston.
Yes. You know, they are known for playing like wholesome, somewhat charming characters.
Right.
And so to especially have them cast as these people that can essentially elicit whatever they want out of you just by suggesting it, and being in a sense kind of just villainous.
Sure.
I thought that was just great on their part, that you know that was a part that they cast him as that, and that is a potential for his character.
Right.
But I also kind of wanted to see a few more circumstances where you get to see that happen. Like we all kind of, that keeps being brought up, how like he never fails, he never loses, but just to kind of see it like happen in like on a wider scale, like the whole room,
right,
like falling under that spell. I thought that was really interesting. I just thought it was a really interesting concept. I wanted to see it blown out more.
Right. Well, and another part of it is that I think we get a little bit of a taste of what it looks like when he's actually harnessing that power.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, you got to think he's been doing it on accident his whole life, basically. And the first time he does it on purpose, he gives the guy a heart attack.
Yeah. Which is terrifying. I don't know what that speaks to, because maybe it was with which the intensity with which he wanted the guy to agree with him, because when he did it to his wife a few minutes later,
right,
you know, she didn't fall over and die.
Well, and I think,
or did it have to do with the guy being older?
Right. I think the way I interpret it is it has to do with intention. If he is actually channeling it and meaning to sway someone like he did for the very first time with the guy whose vote he was trying to get, I think that's when it gets dangerous.
Well, then does that make him more powerful than Renard?
I think that's where we might be going. I think so. I think it's going to get to a point where Renard's going to realize that, you know, that Gaines is more powerful than he is.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. But that was something interesting. I think that was kind of one of the lesser visited subplots of the episode. So it's interesting to kind of explore that territory and kind of the complexity of the Senator Gaines character in the few episodes that we've seen him in.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very intriguing character, and I want to see more of him, and I hope they do more with him. But it was also really nice to see him come back to them. I was also curious as to how he was able to break bills without key or anything.
Right.
Like they just let him roll in.
I was wondering about that for sure.
And I thought he was able to find it.
Right.
I was like,
because he's not like a traveler or anything, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I feel like we may get more answers as to that at some point.
Like, how did that happen?
Right. But let's rewind back. Let's talk about Quentin and Julia. First of all, finding this ancient one that we kind of ended last week's episode on.
The sassy dragon.
And that sassy dragon was so amazing, and we didn't really get to see that much of her.
Not at all.
We get that very first kind of cold open where she's talking about, these millennials.
I just loved how when they died, she's like, fucking millennials.
Right,
I was like, yeah, man, you're not wrong.
Right. There is that line where Julia's like, well, after 24 hours, then what? Then I wait here patiently for you to come back.
I eat you. Hello.
Right.
I'm a dragon.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I also, it was another thing that was it was a throwaway moment, but I enjoyed it as a gag in terms of Quentin having that baby molar, and just before he could even get another sentence out, Julia's already extracted it.
Yeah. I looked that up because I wasn't able to find anything about it, but I didn't realize people could have baby molars.
Right?
Still.
Right? I mean, I guess it's possible, but it's interesting that that's another part of this dragon is that she collects baby teeth.
Like, she's a collector of things that we might consider a tad morbid.
Sure. Like baby teeth. Or milk teeth, as the ancient Greeks might have said, I guess.
Milk teeth.
It was so weird. A lot happened in that cold open.
Yeah, a lot did happen. And then he had to give away the button.
He had to give away the button, of course.
Oh, which messes everything up by the time we get to the end of the episode. And we'll see what happens with Elliot by the end of the episode.
Right.
But we'll get there.
Right. But that's bad news. That's absolutely bad news.
And Penny can't travel. It's like, I feel like they're setting something up with that where it's just like maybe no more fillery. I don't know.
Interesting. And it's funny to compare it to an episode like a couple weeks ago with the bank heist, where everyone seemed to be traveling so easily all together, and now it's not that much longer, and there are all these parameters in place where everyone is kind of segregated from each other.
Yeah, they can't get to each other. It's crazy.
Yeah. What else? But yeah, that's so this whole quest from Quentin and Julia, to get to the underworld. And it was very Beetlejuice-esque, this underworld was.
It was.
It reminded me of.
I like that they had the Greek accents to it, that it was Hades and Persephone and all that. But just even the opening where it's like the welcome video, it's like, don't worry, and he has a pamphlet that says, don't panic. You're probably not going to hell. So when you read it, if you read it from afar, it just says, don't panic, not. I was like, that's messed up.
See that pamphlet?
I see that wordplay.
The pamphlet and the waiting video, or the waiting room and the intro video, that's what reminded me a lot of.
And then even the take a number.
Right, exactly. It was the number. Well, that's where I really thought that they were going to go for that gag where, like, Quentin takes a number and it's like 5,400,000 and they're on, like, number 7 or something.
And then even Julia had, like, a hole in her stomach. It was very clearly, like, Beetlejuice references happening. Because isn't there somebody sitting with, like, a hole in their stomach?
I think so.
And then there's another person, like, holding their head.
Yes.
And then there's Beetlejuice with, like, it wasn't shrunken and then it shrinks.
The hole in the stomach, though, that always speaks to Death Becomes Her.
Exactly.
For me.
Yes.
That movie scared the shit out of me.
Oh my God. I saw that at Sinespia this past summer and I was like, I love it. I remember. It's so cheesy, but I love it.
It's those little kind of camp references. But I do love that aesthetic of the underworld as this waiting room, and it's this way station, but people could be stuck there for a very long time.
It's purgatory. I mean, if you don't know how to get out of purgatory, if you don't get your pardon my French, shit together,
sure,
you could be there for a very long time,
right?
And like, what does that mean? And I liked that they actually did, blow up that world.
Exactly. Yeah, we see a little bit more of it, kind of a more kind of exploded view when we see that bowling alley.
Yeah.
And we get to see the other members of Free Trader Beowulf from the season 1.
Yeah. I love this show for always bringing back season 1 characters. I hope that's something they continue.
Right.
I mean, they didn't introduce too many season 2 characters, at least none that I think will make it or have made it to the end.
Well, and it's the characters it's the characters that you don't expect to see back.
Yeah.
It's the Joshes and the Todds
Yeah.
and things like that that you just you see them and your first reaction is like, "Oh, that guy."
Oh, hey. You're still here?
Right. And when they do
Yeah.
when they do introduce new season 2 characters, it's played by people like Marlee Matlin.
Yeah.
And it's this, this awesome kind of casting.
Yeah, so we'll never see them again.
Right.
To be honest.
But it was
yeah.
short but impactful, that role was.
It was.
But that was, not only did we see, Silver and kind of the rest of the Beowulf crew, but we saw Richard.
Yeah.
And
I did not think they were going to do that.
Exactly. And that was something that I had so easily forgotten that, like what you said earlier about how Mackenzie Aston kind of usually plays these very well-meaning kind of characters.
Yeah, even on Scandal, he's kind of like a weird journalist, but he's still like a well-meaning weird journalist.
I see. I didn't know he was in Scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this character, Richard, is... I feel like that was very deliberate. The fact that Richard is very kind of... sort of milquetoast and just kind of like goody two-shoes.
Well, you get to see the differences in the two characters.
Right,
and
right.
I think that was good to see because I think we've all kind of forgotten what Richard was like. I mean, Richard was kind of strangely conniving at the beginning of season 1 when we first introduced him, just because he had the intention of trying to get back to his son.
Right.
Which he was still trying to get back to.
He still is,
but
yeah.
compared to Reynard, like, Richard is incredibly milquetoast.
Right.
Incredibly white.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, white and milquetoast don't mean the same thing. Yes, they do.
Yeah,
but
that's probably fair.
But yeah, so it was very good to see, like, oh, okay, Reynard is a lot more dastardly, and also just like, I think, fun for the actor to do as well.
Right. And it was, that was one of those things I had forgotten that Renard's physical appearance is just because he had picked Richard as a vessel, right? And so that's the only reason that we've been seeing him like this. So it's easy to forget that there was something else there. But it is touching. It's nice that that's still his ultimate goal in the underworld is
to get to his
reconnecting with his son.
Yeah.
And the fact that the staff won't help him because he's culpable in his son's death.
He's essentially responsible. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's rough. Right?
Doesn't make you want to die. I tell you that.
Right.
Sounds difficult.
Except
for the bowling.
Right, exactly.
A strike.
Should we? Oh, that strike! Oh,
You get a strike every time.
Let's talk about that strike. Let's talk about it because that was an adorable moment.
Yeah.
Where like Quentin's in the midst of all of this kind of heaviness, and that's one of the things that I've loved about the show is that in the middle of all this heaviness, you can still see these kind of brief glimpses of levity.
Yeah.
And he gets a strike, and he's just genuinely excited about it.
And then Richard's like, you get a strike the first week every single time.
The first week, everyone's a strike.
Like, let's just give it to her.
And,
give it to him.
And that line, so... At first, I'm like, okay, that's kind of, it's a throwaway line, it's good for a laugh. But I think it spoke a lot more to me about what shades are in the world of this show. And I think what my interpretation of it after seeing that line is that it's not necessarily
all your goodness,
all semblance of morality or of goodness. It's maybe virtuosity. Is that virtuosity? I know virtuosity is the movie. I don't know if that's the
virtuosity.
The trait of being virtuous.
You're talking about the movie with Denzel Washington.
Yes.
The virtuality.
What I mean, no. It's virtuosity. But what I mean,
yeah, you're right.
What I mean is the state of being virtuous. I think that's not the right word.
Let's go with innocence because I think that's an easier one for me to touch on.
Let's go with that.
Because I don't remember what virtuosity means right now. Is he looking it up right now?
Please do.
What does it mean?
Please do. Is it virtuousness? What's
virtuous?
What's virtuosity?
What I'm getting is a taste for or interest in virtue and great technical skill, as in the practice of a fine art.
Okay. So
what is virtue?
So I was right. Virtuosity is the state of being virtuous. It was just also used in that movie as like a play on virtual.
Yes,
That's
it was.
what it was. All right. We got it.
It's such a weird movie. I can't believe you even brought up Virtuosity. And I love you all the more for even knowing what that movie is.
Is that Denzel? What?
That's Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Young Russell Crowe.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot.
I would always get that confused with Johnny Mnemonic.
That's understandable because they're confusing.
They came out around the same time.
It's about going into the virtual and then also like somebody coming out of it, like shouldn't have come out of it.
That was hot in the mid '90s.
It was because we were terrified.
Man, everyone was scared of the internet.
Terrified.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
Multiplicity. No, that's different.
I love Multiplicity so much. It's legitimately one of my favorite movies.
We do.
But so I think, because this whole time I had been thinking that losing your shade is losing really
all your goodness,
any semblance of goodness. Yeah, that you're essentially just a husk at that point. But I think it's losing your virtuosity, and it's acting selfish, but there's still a little part in you.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest mistake of humanity is that we assume that goodness is this pure entity and badness is this pure entity, and that's just not true. I mean, we kind of always toggle and blend within the two all the time. So when they talk about like shade, I don't think that means that you can't ever be good, you can't ever have a conscience. It's just that the innocence that lives in you, like the child that lives within you, is gone. So I think we tend to, I guess, go back to that innocence in certain moments when we need it, when we need to be somewhat naive to show an act of kindness. But that's not the end all be all to what it means to be good. You know?
Right. Well, and it's appropriate that it's even called a shade because these are shades of gray. You know,
exactly.
Nothing is black and white in these worlds.
Or in life.
You know, you got it. Not to get too deep. But yeah, so I love this whole quest of trying to find Julia's shade, you know, searching through the underworld, and how Richard ends up kind of helping them with it and
with his
providing that distraction.
Milquetoast nerdiness. That was beautiful.
That was adorable. I'm just gonna take all these numbers.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm gonna get thrown into a prison for 3 weeks. So what's 3 weeks in all of eternity?
Right, exactly. And there was a little line in that scene. I don't know if it was deliberate. It might have been, where the head of security, when he's trying to get him away from the numbers, he says, "Oh, quite the jokester you are."
I didn't catch that. Yeah,
right?
Look at that.
There we go.
I did wonder if, I guess Julia did in that time between tell him officially like that Reynard was walking around in his skin.
I was wondering about
that's not something we saw,
happened.
but we saw something. But she alluded to it when she first ran into him. She's like, "Oh, it's good to see you, the real you." And
right.
he's like, what happened?
Right, exactly. It's like, well, how much time we got?
I was like, wow. I was like, he's handling that really well.
Pretty happy.
If she did tell him that somebody's walking around looking like him.
Right.
You know, raping and murdering people.
Yeah.
But just to, what was I going to say? Oh, I did want to touch on just like, with the whole idea of Hades and Persephone, we discover that Persephone is also, are you ready? Are we going into this?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Our Lady Underground.
Right.
And so she is a real person, a real entity that Reynard was impersonating. How'd you feel about that?
It was pretty, like, it made this episode so much bigger.
Yeah.
Because I had forgotten when I had forgotten first about the Free Trader Beowulf group, but also their end goal, and they're trying to summon Our Lady Underground. And also, of course, Julia's resentment towards the fact that they couldn't summon her.
Yeah, because she's just not showing up anymore.
Right. And so I think that was something that I wanted more.
Yeah.
I felt like I was missing something about why she was out of the picture, about why Julia thought, whether accurately or not, if she was willingly not staying out of that realm.
I mean, it seems weird that, it being that she exists, and if this is something that Reynard's been doing for a while, that she would allow it to happen.
Right.
So I understand her. Sorry, I'm tangled in a cord right now, you guys. I understand her anger at that. I also thought it was just kind of a nice play on words that she was Our Lady Underground and she's like the queen of the underworld.
Oh boy, I didn't catch that.
That's cute, you guys.
Very clever.
Very clever, very clever.
Clever.
But I hope, I would assume, if we see a picture of her, then we get to see her come back.
Sure.
So, because, it's not cheap using a picture of,
Right.
of an actor.
Exactly.
You have to pay us for likeness. But, like, and so that was cool to see. But I think, you know, in any case, let's get to the
let's talk about
the meaty
now.
part of that.
Well, now that we're talking about Persephone, about Our Lady Underground, let's talk about these miracle kids, these kind of these disconnected shades that we see in Elysium.
So but I feel like a shade then, if I feel like the shade is the purest part, even though like you can still have a kindness in you without them.
Sure.
I just think it's kind of like almost like you're just slightly like you have Asperger's almost to a certain extent. Like you can understand, like a person without their shade is just someone who kind of like has an understanding of the world.
I see.
Understands kindness, but slips up and forgets to say, "I'm going to pull out your tooth."
I see. Sure.
You know,
sure.
like
sure,
it's almost
sure.
kind of like that.
Sure.
So then I feel like a shade is just pure innocence and kindness.
Right.
You know, like
and I think that's exactly right. I think it's both innocence and kindness. It's the fact that it's not just this kind of innocence or you know, naivete. It's wanting to just help people that need it.
Yeah.
And so seeing these miracles that these kids are doing, like dropping a little dollar bill on the ground for the boy that ran away, or like making the flowers bloom in the hospital room. Jesus. Whoa. That came out of nowhere.
I know.
But
touches on that little part of you that like gets weepy at like commercials.
Sure. Oh no, that's 100%.
I know
me.
that sounds
That's
weird, but it's
100%
true.
me.
It's just like this.
I'll tell you that right now.
Like that Home Away commercial with the dog and the kid, and there's like two sides. It's like the little girl missing her pet when she goes on vacation, and then they cut to another version of the commercial. Sorry, we're rambling because we have a lot of time. Or we don't. You cut to the other side, and it's the dog running to meet her on her
Interesting.
vacation.
I don't know if I saw that.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Right. But so let's wrap up this kind of subplot so we can move on, because there's still a lot.
There's still a lot.
Quentin finds Julia's shade.
Yeah.
Julia sneaks into Persephone's room to find her own shade.
Yeah, and it's Alice.
She stumbles upon Alice's shade. And speaking of getting weepy, that moment on Quentin's face, and I think it's such a testament to Jason Ralph and
oh my god, I know.
There's like so much is going through his head and so much is shown on his face in that one embrace.
Yeah.
That got me, yeah.
Oh, that really got me. It was beautiful. And then it really, for me, this episode really made me think differently about like what the shade means for Julia. Or is it that Julia is just an exception to the rule? Like, are other people going about their shades? Because when you think about it, Alice was so nasty without her shade, and Martin was so nasty without his shade. So is Julia kind of like almost an exception to the rule, that she can still find this kindness? And that does that touch on what the dean talked about with her last time, that she's always trying to push forward and push past obstacles.
And is there maybe something to be said for her relationship with Quentin, or Quentin's influence on her, and if he's able to kind of maybe pull that out of her?
Maybe. But yeah, just watching her take Alice's shade instead, it's like you're giving up so much. You died. A dragon blew a hole through your body.
So we've got. So she used her one shot to go back to the Hamilton reference.
I'm not gonna miss her. She did miss her shot.
Take my shot. She took Alice's shade instead, and so it's interesting to see, or it'll be interesting to see if she's somehow able to get her shade back via other means, or if that was just an act of pure sacrifice.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. So
we'll see if she even really needs it.
Right. You know? Exactly. So speaking of sacrifice, of course we know that Penny signed this deal
an idiot
to work at the library for millions of years.
I thought that he could leave, but apparently he can't ever leave the library. Is that the deal?
Is that why we got the Inception sex?
The Inception.
And that's why, the Incepticourse, all the different fun terms that they came up with it. I didn't even think about that, but I think you're exactly right. It's the fact that he's bound to this library.
Unless he leaves for library business, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's why they were able to go to Fuzzbeat.
Yeah.
And meet Harriet. I see.
Sucks.
Yeah. So, but we meet. Well, first of all, let's start at the beginning. The whole plan is that they need to find this RSD-Acetium in the poison room. So of course they need a code to get into the poison room. That code is locked down tighter than a nun's pussy, as Penny so aptly put it.
Well, the librarian.
Right. And so they're trying to find it in the librarian's book. But of course that book is locked in the poison room. So we meet Penny's supervisor, Sylvia, who is a super fun part.
17-year-old?
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
Well, I think 18 plus only because of one of the lines that she says.
What did she say?
At one point she's wondering why Penny's coming onto the librarian so hard, and she asks, "Is that why you were scamming her so hard? I was about to blow you."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh, okay, let's."
I mean, have you met 17-year-olds?
No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying being 17 precludes you from saying something like that. I'm saying it being on a television show on a Viacom-owned network.
I mean, have you watched the CW?
I don't know if they're working that blue on the CW over on Riverdale.
They get pretty close.
I see. So
Gossip Girl was definitely getting.
Gossip Girl was. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. So we meet Sylvia, who's kind of this sort of Meadow-esque character, as we find out. You know, her dad is a legitimate
Mobster,
businessman,
magician.
as she insists.
Mobster magician.
Exactly. So you got to think the people that he's going up against, if she's being protected in this library, that's got to be some serious shit, you know?
I wonder if her dad's Reynard.
I see. Now I was wondering about that. I was trying to think if there was anything else in the season that would have precluded that from being true.
Maybe.
Because that was my first thought. But I don't know. I have no clue.
Yeah. We'll see.
But I love their interactions, because I don't think Penny has come up against someone that's matched him in the surliness department. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that was great to see, especially her being so young as well.
Right.
It was kind of like, whoa.
Right.
Penny, you need to grow up, dude.
Right.
17-year-old is telling you.
Is on your level, right?
Yeah.
And but she is helping him out. She's she's telling him the librarian's name, Zelda.
Yeah.
Which reminded me of Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I just thought of the video game.
Oh, of course, that too. But which is magicians.
Yes, that's
true. You know.
That's true.
But I love that. Yeah, her name is just right there on her lunch. Yeah. Like sometimes it's that easy.
It's just that if you know what you're looking for, then yeah.
Because that librarian does have a very 50s quality to her, and I think a lot of the different realms have these elements of kind of bygone eras. Whether it's at the bowling alley or in this library, you know, they've got hallmarks of decades past. Yeah. And so it is very...
We talked about that with Josh. Right. Just how like the librarians have like a certain kind of style, and even the way they speak and act is like a very like, you know, what you see in 50s TV shows, and whether or not that's actually what the 50s were like. But yeah.
And the library does have these very kind of grayish... this grayish color palette to it, which reminds me a little bit of Pleasantville.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Or Lady to Beaver.
Right, exactly. Were all of those lunches hers, by the way? I didn't get all of the names on them.
I don't think so.
Or that was just different people that work in the library?
Maybe.
Okay.
I've only seen two.
I think you're right. I think you're right. What else? What else did Penny? Oh, Penny's whole like flirting with the librarian was so like
weird.
He's so not used to people not falling for that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I would never fall for Penny's flirting.
No?
No, it's not my style.
It's
a little too overt.
Right.
Like, you know, make sex to my mind.
We're going to put that on a shirt. We're going to have AfterBuzz shirts. We're going to put that on Adrian's shirt. You can get that online.
Make sex to my mind.
But, so that's what we've got in this whole subplot with Penny and Katie.
Yeah.
It's ultimately just them trying to get into this poison room.
Yeah.
Is a lot happens, but that's really what it's
really what
it
is. All the insectioning and all that kind of stuff. That's what it's really about.
Right. And we find out that Sylvia also has her reasons for wanting to get into the poison room, which we don't find out just yet.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that.
Exactly.
Let's go to Fillory, though.
Yeah.
Let's go to Elliot.
And the Rattening.
Man. Before we get to the Rattening, though, that scene with Elliot Nedry.
Yeah.
Boy.
I was like, oh, snap.
I was like, damn, this is going to get...
Some How to Get Away with Murder gay sex scenes.
I was like, this is going to get intense.
It didn't, though.
But nothing, nope, suddenly rats. suddenly Idris a rat.
Man, really? Can I get, like, some hot...
And that was
Adrian,
Adrian, like that voice, like Len Roberts' voice, like that dude knows what he's doing.
It's a panty dropper voice, right?
Right, that's exactly right.
It's a draw dropper.
There's another t-shirt right there. But Elliot, I felt so bad for Elliot because like we've seen him get. I feel like we've seen him get blue balls in the show before, never to this extent. I think the fact that he's sitting there blindfolded, taking off his shirt,
and then he turns into a rat. Like that's just got to be the worst.
So yeah, let's talk about this element of chaos magic that's striking Fillory, you know, and this between everyone getting turned into rats, the upside down rain, the chickens that have laryngitis.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing was when Rafe was like, Abigail's become a rat, and why did I not learn rat in college?
Rafe is becoming like low-key one of my favorite characters for sure. Like his delivery of his few lines in this episode.
And he's running an
escort service using the guards.
That's crazy.
Right.
I love it though.
Now, I may be mistaken. Is Abigail the sloth?
Abigail is the sloth.
Got it.
And he's in love with her.
Right.
How does that work?
Her sluggishness. I love the different honorifics that he's come up with for the sloth. But yeah, so it's been hit with this chaos magic, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no logic to it. We get that conversation between Margot and the fairy ambassador where he's like, "Look, this ain't us.
Yeah,
like you done fucked up somewhere else."
That sucks. He's like, "We just took Fen.
Hey, we're gonna take your baby.
We don't really care. We got what we wanted.
Rats ain't our style.
We're not here to like. We got what we wanted.
Right.
Yeah, that makes complete sense when you think about it. It's like, well, they don't need to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They just want that baby.
They just want that baby.
They don't need to take all of the blonde
people?
All of the blonde people and creatures, because it also included Palomino
Yes,
horses,
that's true.
in one part of Fillory. But
it just sounds like somebody's having fun.
Exactly.
Being vicious.
A very sinister kind of fun.
Yeah.
Right. But we get that scene where Elliot truthies Tick and Rafe and Margot.
Yes. And Margot finally has to admit it.
Right. We also find out that Tick Pickwick's been embezzling.
Yes.
From the Royal Fund.
I was kind of like, well, yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Right. There's something under the surface.
Yeah.
We talked to Rizwan.
Yeah.
We know there's something bubbling under the surface of Tick Pickwick. And then of course the escort service with Rafe, but Margot, she has to come clean about making the deal with the fairies for Fenn's baby, for Elliot's baby.
He puts her in the nicest jail and makes sure that she has her coconut oil.
Oh man, it's a moment that's so specific to these characters, to the characters of Elliot and Margot, that like, I don't want to do this, and I'm gonna make sure you're as comfortable as possible, but you're still going in the dungeon.
Yeah. That's great.
If for nothing else, for your own good, because because another mess might
be your fault.
Exactly. Yeah. So he has to have the guards throw her in the dungeon, and
then we get that cut with her and Rafe.
Yes.
And Rafe gives her the potion or whatever to take her to the fairyland.
Right. Because he's basically too much of a pussy to do it himself, as Margot says.
And then what I didn't catch the first time I watched this was that Josh had been turned into a rat. And that of all the people that Elliot could figure out how to de-rat, he chose Josh.
Well, and I feel like, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of my favorite scenes of this episode. The fact that like Josh has kind of become one of Elliot's the second most trusted advisor behind Margot, you know? The fact that like he's harmless, but sometimes he stumbles upon these good ideas.
That's true.
The fact that he kind of accidentally invents democracy in this scene.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of brought me to this last scene that we see Elliot in, you know. Elliot needs governors. He needs delegates, I guess you could say. And so Josh suggests, why don't you just have people vote on them?
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to do shit.
Yeah.
And they go to high five over this good idea, which Elliot doesn't seem the high-fiving type, especially with Josh.
Yeah.
Right?
Well.
Like, that didn't seem on brand for Elliot, but I
think he might have also been a little bit drunk.
I think so. I think he was so drained from
everything.
Casting that spell. I think he had said, almost an hour that he had spent casting that spell to turn Josh back into a naked human.
Yeah.
And so they go to high five for it, and all of a sudden,
he's back at Breakville. Physical kid's house, which the physical kid's house had changed. Did you notice it had a white exterior instead of the brown?
No, I hadn't noticed that.
I was like, oh, they changed the house. What happened?
Interesting.
In any case, yeah. So I was like, oh,
So I'm very interested because he says that he tells Todd that he thinks he might have just gotten kicked out of Fillory.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, my first thought, and I don't know if this is wildly off base or not, but my first thought is that there's something about the act of, or the concept of democracy that is against Fillorian rules.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's wildly off base or what, but that was my first interpretation.
Maybe.
Is that like, no, you have to do all of this work. This is your job now.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's possible.
Right?
Maybe.
Right?
I thought it was like a lifetime. I feel like he would just be killed instead.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's true. But I think that's pretty much it. I think
I'm sorry, it's late for me. I'm old. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
Right. So we've got a couple minutes left. Where do we think we're going from here? We've only got a couple episodes left.
You want to go into prediction?
Let's go into prediction. Can we get some quick predictions? Yes.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
I did say yes.
Yes. Good.
Yes.
Yes. So we've got what, like 2 episodes left?
We have 2 episodes. I think that I really hope that they reveal like who is causing all this ridiculousness,
like all the chaos and stuff.
It doesn't seem like it's just happening for no reason.
Right.
I also think that I wonder if Julia, like, how they get the shade, if Julia has to carry Alice's shade or something like that.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then what does that mean? Like, is she gonna be acting like Alice for the next episode or 2?
Uh-huh.
And then I just want to see what that poisons room's all about. Doesn't sound like a very good idea to go into a place called the poison room.
No, it's right there on the tin, guys.
Yeah. Poison room.
Right, exactly.
So.
I do think we're gonna get that scene where Renard realizes that Gaines is far more powerful than he ever thought that he was. Gaines, and we touched on it a little bit, but Gaines is joining up with Katie in the fight against Renard, or the hunt for Renard, as it were. So we'll see how that turns out. I feel like either Gaines will be the one to strike kind of the killing blow, or he'll sacrifice himself for the Breakbills kids.
Yeah.
The mystery team.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think we'll also get a little bit more about Sylvia's father, about his business dealings, legitimate as they may or may not be.
Cool.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot happening, guys. Remember, tweet us your predictions. If you're on Twitter, find us on Twitter. If you're on iTunes, leave us a comment, download, comment, review, subscribe, rate, 5 stars if you're nasty. YouTube, thumbs up, comment. We want to hear from you guys. This was super fun.
Yeah.
Carrie Lane, Joel Monique will be back right here, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Until then, Adrienne, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Adrienne Snow. You can also find me on the Unproduced Table Read on Popcorn Talk on Fridays, and then Doctor Who beginning April 16th.
There you go. You landed that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That Unproduced Table Read, I've been hearing awesome things about it.
Good.
Guys, go check that out.
You get to hear me do crazy voices and act.
There
which
you
is
go.
What I'm classically trained
what
to
else
do.
would you want? Adrienne doing crazy voices. You can find me on all forms of social media at Ty Matthews PMA, as well as on Monday nights on Monday Night Raw after show. I just came back from Orlando. I was on the red carpet for the WWE Hall of Fame, so go check out all that content on YouTube. And while you're there, check us out. Go look at our past interviews. Look at our talks with Joshua Butler and Rizwan Wanji, and even from season 1, Arjun Gupta, and all of our awesome guests. Because
and Joshua Butler again.
Exactly. Multiple time guest, friend of the show.
Great.
But guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back here, same bat time, same bat channel, talking season 2, episode 12 of The Magicians. But until then, peace.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.